Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going straight out of space here in Colorado Springs. We're going actually to a really cool place that is the Space Foundation and Discovery Center. Let's go. Now, whenever I think of Colorado Springs, I did not think of space for some reason, but whenever I found out that this place was open, it was a must-see. So, needless to say, we're about to go and find out what it takes to go up, 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 and away into space. And there's a few rules outside, so let's check them out first. Okay, it looks like they are asking guests who have not been vaccinated to wear their mask. And also, they're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 till 4. Okay, adventurers, behind us is the entrance to the museum, and I went ahead and after paying, went ahead and picked up this little map to give us some context as to where we're going as we kind of move about. Now, if you are coming here, they do have adult admission as well as children's prices. So for an adult, it's $10. For the kiddos, it's a little bit less. And it's so cool because as soon as you walk in, you're just immersed in this amazing place that has all of this space just around us. And it all begins here. Isn't this spectacular? Okay, adventurers, inside the gallery we go. I am so excited because I can already see some things that are just really giving me squirrel syndrome. I don't know where to start. Let's start to the right. Starting out in this room, we are in the textile area. Like textile, only tech style. See? And we have some of the awesome uniforms. But not only that, if we look at the tag, it tells us not only what it is, but when it was worn, and a little brief synopsis as to what it would have had that was special about it. And then in this display, whenever you walk up, it actually turns on this X-ray of the Apollo A7L space boots. Look at this. Isn't this cool? Now, I think we started off at just the right spot because this textile area actually is the first thing that is interactive from this particular location. It says here that in 2019, they actually asked people to weigh in on what they thought would be the next big thing in spacesuits. That is such a cool thing. I mean, how many times whenever you were a kid did you sit there and draw out little spacemen or what you thought it would be like to be an astronaut? I mean, I know I did. And these were just a few of the responses that they had. Now on this, you can actually read that there are people from different locations. There's one in Colorado Springs, but this one actually says, "Greetings from Russia." That's so cool. And then you can see all of the neat postcards that people have sent, Lake Geneva and the Museum of Science and Industry. That's so neat. Now, before we fully engulf ourselves in this portion over here, look at it, oh my gosh, it's so cool, of the museum, I just wanted to kind of challenge you all at home. Just for a minute, before we move into this part, think about it. If you were a person who was a young child thinking about wanting to go to space, what did you think it would be like? What did you think that you would be doing? Or, if you ever watched the Jetsons, did you think by now we'd have flying cars? Because I know I did. Now, when most of us think about astronauts, we think of this version of astronaut right here. And if we go back to the little display, we can find out what this uniform actually does. There's so many different functions that we would probably not even think about. For example, an in-suit drink bag. Yep, they definitely have one of those. They also have a temperature control valve and an O2 actuator. But when we go to the back side, that's where the real magic happens. Look at this. Wow, there's an antenna, a fan, lights, radio, O2 tanks, a little bit of everything. And it goes down to the very last detail in the pants legs even. Now, by a show of hands at home, how many of you think that you would like to lug around all of that? no hands, no hands. I think it would be really heavy, but again, you're in space, so weightlessness, in fact, that leads me to my next display right here. Speaking of weightlessness, actually this right here shows how this particular astronaut is floating around inside of a spaceship, and all of these different things around the side actually tell us a little bit more about what that would actually be like. Now, a lot of us have seen the movies where they train and train and train just to go to space, but why do they have to do that? Why do they have to do all of these crazy things? It's because when you're in space and you have this weightlessness, a lot of crazy stuff can happen to your body itself. And it's stuff that we right here on Earth don't think about. Gravity makes a huge difference, guys, on so many things. For example, did you know that in microgravity that your bones actually weaken and your muscles break down? You have to stay physically fit even in space. Otherwise, this could be detrimental. Or this, did you know that you could actually grow up to 3 inches while you're in space? Because your spine, it doesn't have the same gravity pushing and pulling on it, so it stretches out. But whenever you come back to Earth, that can actually create some pretty bad back problems. And then what about this one? If your body doesn't know how to handle the microgravity, the salts and the minerals that are on Earth that usually flush out try to stay in your body. So this stops you from being able to have just like all of the fun stuff that you might want to while in space. But that's actually just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other things that we don't think about. Like this one right up here says that your eyes can actually be damaged permanently by going to space. I never thought about that whenever I was standing there saying I wanted to be an astronaut. I need to be able to see. But I think this is the most interesting part. It says, what have we learned from Space Lab? In the 17 years of Space Lab, 36 missions have flown and 800 separate investigations have been completed. And they have determined by that there are several different sustainable knowns. For example, microgravity does not negatively affect the development of frog eggs or the mobility of tadpoles, and so that they can actually return to gravity. Not all cell types, though, react the same way to microgravity, and growth rate of bacteria actually increases when there is no gravity to the level that we have it now. So what does that mean? That means in space, the heebie-jeebies could be much worse than they are even here on Earth. Something about the gravity actually limits the ability for bacteria and things like that to go above and beyond. But when you remove that, they thrive and flourish. So that's kind of scary. Okay guys, one of the workers here actually came over and explained this to me. Now, picture this, we're still walking, this thing is huge. Now, they wanted to actually be able to do some tests in space, and in order to do that, they needed to know what 80 feet out would be responding in that vacuum of no gravity. So, this is one of the pieces of that test, and it is huge, but this isn't even the full thing. This is just part of it. This is a 30-foot section. The other 2 sections are each 25 feet. So picture this, almost completely times 3 just for one test. I think that's so cool. I mean, there's so many things that you find that they use in space that are so vastly different than anything we would find here on Earth. And so when you come out and explore places like this, you're like, what is that? And sure enough, there's people here who can answer those questions. And this is what those 25-foot sections would look like, kind of. So they're kind of like arms. And the way it was just explained to me, this little part right here kind of pops open, and whenever it does, those arms would be used to manipulate what is inside this section. This section of the museum is what dreams are made of right here. These are some of the firsts. So this was the first Indian American woman in space right here. And then as we go next to her, we have Chris Hadfield. He was selected as one of 4 astronauts in the Canadian Space Agency, 2nd astronaut class of 1992, and he went on to have a huge career with NASA. Then we move over here Oh my goodness, this is actually a senator, Senator Garn. He became the first sitting member of Congress to go into space. That's cool. And then right here we have Miss Sally Ride. Now I have always heard the stories of Sally Ride, and it has always brought me great joy and sadness at the same time. And then alongside these we have what is called the solid rocket booster segment. So if you look at these photos, you can see the context of just how large this really is, but until you see it in person, it doesn't really do it justice. Look at this. This is one. Just one. I always feel very small in the grand scheme of anything that has to do with space. This one thing is at least 2.5 of me tall, at least, maybe 3. I don't know, it's pretty big. And then here I'm just going to show you a little bit of a size comparison, because we're talking about comparisons of size already. Do you see this over here? This is the people. The people, there they are right there, versus these particular items that I am about to show you. The Delta, the Ariane 5, the Statue of Liberty, and the Atlas. So as you can see, these behind me are actually the models of those things that I just showed you on the size chart. And each one of them is a little bit different. It's kind of cool to see how the differences come together to create different kinds of solutions for common problems that they would have with space travel. So for example, the Atlas V here, which is a 500 series rocket, was actually used on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Now, this was first launched in August 21st of 2002, and this is a 1/20th scale model of it right here. So if we were looking at the actual dimensions, it would be 215 feet tall and 12.5 feet in diameter. Now this one has 3 different tubes, and it is called the Delta IV Heavy. It was launched as a communications satellite, and it was planned for a debut of unmanned test flights also. It first launched December 21st of 2004, and this again is a 1/20th scale model. So if we were looking at the big guy, it'd be 232 feet tall and 16.4 feet around. As we move on, now we kind of have some comparisons of size. We kind of understand the magnitude of how big these things are. And now we're moving into something that looks very different. This is curious, the Scott Carpenter Station. But what does it do? And why is it next to all of these really cool tanks? Now, would you believe it if I told you that this particular thing right here actually launched for the first time in 1997 in Key Largo, Florida. And it had a very specific purpose that was really kind of cool. It was actually charting the bottom of the ocean in analog. Now, the mission of this particular experiment right here was actually to connect directly to classrooms and share their findings. But not only that, as they were able to kind of navigate around, they were able to see the similarities between the bottom of the ocean and space, the final frontier. Now, it says here that after its retirement, the Scott Carpenter Space Analog Station was actually stored at NASA at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And then time and the elements gradually started to take their toll on this particular station. It was in 2013 that the Carpenter Space Analog Station was actually brought to Colorado Springs, and the process to recover and restore began. So it has been here since 2013, sharing its story and also its demonstrations so that people could understand a little bit better of what the importance of this particular piece of information brought to us. And what did it bring to us? It brought us this. This is amazing. So this is actually some microfilm that are showing you the signs of life that they were able to record and find at the bottom of the ocean. In addition, there's some other information here that you'll definitely want to check out if you visit about this, and you can find out a little bit more about what kind of crew that they had and then what kind of findings that they had. Then look at this. We can actually look at a few more of them. So the way that this works is pretty simple. We just take the slide and then we grab another one Here we go. We put it in place, and wow, instantly we're able to see what's on the slide. Look at that. What is space weather? That is what this encourages you to ask yourself. What is it? What does it do? What does it look like? Is it the same as here on Earth? Well, you can find all the answers right here, and we're about to go find some of them. Right here it shows all of the different things that have to do with the sun. Up here, this constantly is changing to show you a little bit more about what that would look like. All of the different tumultuous, crazy things that are going on the sun at any given time. Now, as you can imagine from us walking around so far, there's tons of interaction here, and that makes it a perfect place for people to come with their kids or on field trips and things like that. And that's why I think it's really cool that we're walking past this wall right here, which is actually all student art from a contest that they have held here at the center. So whenever you're here, you can scoop up some crayons and get a little bit busy yourself, and who knows, maybe you'll be displayed on the wall next. All I can say looking through these is there are children from all over the world who are represented on this wall, and their art is so good. Like, so good. But I have just been so impressed just looking at their interpretations of space and how it works. And this is the International Student Art Contest. So if you ever have a little moment, try to go look that up. Amazing, just amazing. Now, well beyond these spaceships themselves, we also have satellites, and these few displays that are right here, and then over here all tell us a little bit more about that. I think that this is just kind of interesting because if you go, you can actually look at the different years on this. So like 1979 right here to 1990 to 2003. And this is the ozone hole. So you could see how it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger each measurement. And then right here we can see 3 readings from 1986, 1991, and 2001 indicating the deforestation. So here is 1986, then 1991, and then 2001. And you'll notice that a lot less of this solid green on here now. And then let's compare population growth within 3 years. So 1972, 1986, and 2001. Okay, there's that one. It's getting bigger. And then do you see this over here? Can you imagine? Look how much that this has expanded outward. Now, if you didn't read on the part where I was telling you what it was, what city was that? Would you believe that it is Las Vegas? I know that Las Vegas is booming and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In fact, old Las Vegas used to be quite small, and now it encompasses many miles and many suburban areas. It is quite large and in charge. And then would you believe that this was taken from a satellite? This is an overhead view of Manhattan. Look at this. There's so many details. And all of this was from space. Look, it is a Mars Viking lander. And this probably weighs just under 8,000 pounds. In fact, according to this, it says that this is an actual size model. Now that's cool. So this thing right here was designed to go to a place that we all would eventually like to go to see if we could live there too. That's kind of cool. Another neat interactive display. It asks you which one of these is the Grand Canyon from space. So we have several different pieces to this, and it says Please touch the Grand Canyon. Well, the Grand Canyon is one of my favorite places, so I feel as though we should definitely touch the Grand Canyon. It brings us so much happiness, and this is basically what started my blog. Now we have reached a portion of the mission control area, and this is actually kind of cool. This is the operation management console, and not only can you see what it looks like, but they have something very special at this museum that I've been seeing a couple of other places too, so let me share. What's that, guys? That's a QR code. That means that this museum has another level of interaction that you can partake in whenever you visit. So the way that this works is we just take our phone, turn on the camera, and then it automatically scans it, and we can click this and it will take us to even more information. Now, my little pro tip to you all, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this, but you don't want to worry about internet connectivity, or also if you're in a hurry to get through and can't do everything, take pictures of these, and then whenever you get to a place where you have a little bit more time, you can scan them with your phone from the picture. It does work, and then you can deep dive a little bit more. I know I like to do that whenever I'm writing my blogs because it allows me to see that second layer of the museum that tells me a little bit more, and it's really, really cool. Now, as we all know, it is very different to land on the moon or to be in space than it is to be here in the States doing just what we normally do. So one of the tougher challenges that they faced was actually finding a way to be able to land the lunar module. So they had to create this special kind of strut, and you can kind of see it as it's implemented here. It would look kind of like this, but this would be an actual one to size. And what this did was it had a honeycomb inside that would actually be able to handle the impact of the landing and still support things on the surface. So it was a very durable piece of equipment, but at the same time had to have a lot of function beyond just being durable. So even before an astronaut could put his foot onto the moon and say, one small step, one giant leap, the actual module had to be able to land. And that's how they did it, was they came up with this ingenious way of finding the ability of how this piece right here could enable this to actually touch down. Here we find names of all of the different lunar modules, and I thought this was kind of neat because I haven't heard of some of these before. And so they have the Apollo 9 through 17 and what each one of the modules actually was named. And I love that Apollo 10 was named Snoopy and Charlie Brown. Now, in case you didn't know this, Snoopy actually was the pioneering mascot for the space program, and I think that's so cool. If you go to the Smithsonian, there is a special hall dedicated to all things Snoopy. It shows you all sorts of cool stuff that had to do with the space program. And also, I noticed that whenever I visited Oklahoma City at their science museum, they had a similar display with Snoopy and space. So kind of keep your eyes out, because that little beagle is going places, or rather, he has gone places. Did you know that they're actually developing hydroponic farming systems that could grow things in space and then eventually into distant worlds? Well, they are. And actually, this is one of the many iterations of developments that they're creating in order to do so. Now, this one that we're seeing right here was actually a joint experiment between NASA and the University of Hawaii, and they developed this and actually had 1 year of testing in an isolated environment between 2015 and 2016, and it proved that it can work. So that is cool. This could be the future. Now, we thought we were going to be flying around in jets and cars, but in reality we might just be cultivating plants in space. Now, what kind of things do we use here on Earth that can be used in space? That's the real question, and this wall has a few of those answers. Who on the channel has ever drank Tang? I know I have. Well, it was actually invented in 1957 and went into space in 1962. It was a part of the space food. Look at this. Some of the great old ads of Tang. Now, I know you've all used Teflon. In 1941, it was actually invented by DuPont, but it was used in space in the 1960s and was used as an outer coating actually for spacesuits, heat shields, and more. So I would definitely say that if NASA can trust them to protect the astronauts, you should be able to trust them in your home. And then this is one of my love-hate relationships right here, Velcro. Invented in 1940s, it was actually used in space in the 60s to anchor all the supplies, very similar to that of why I use it in my van. Now, if you're new to the channel and have no idea what I'm talking about, I actually do van life, so I travel all over the United States in my van. And I have found that magnets are my best friend. Velcro has a love-hate relationship with me, but it works. And my last but not least surefire everything is actually those little bungee cords. They're awesome. But enough of that, let's get back to space. Now this is super cool. While attempting to grow plants on the International Space Station, NASA actually developed air scrubbers. And these air scrubbers can actually convert ethylene gas into carbon dioxide in water. That is awesome. Wait a second, what is this? Sunglasses actually have come around because of certain things, because of space? What? It says here that NASA actually needed a way to protect astronauts' eyes from the unfiltered light in space, and it led them to develop this special polarized lens by simulating the oil found in eyes of eagles. What? Now, I, for one, have seen the movie Apollo 13, and there's that moment in Apollo 13 where they determine that they have to build this thing kind of on the fly to fix something, and everybody gets together in this big think tank and makes it happen. I feel like some of these things have been a result of similar pressure. They have applied pressure when necessary and come up with ingenious ideas. And I think that that's what sets NASA scientists apart from other scientists in other fields. They're very creative under pressure in very unique and specific ways. Now, we've been walking through this area that is called Better Living Through Space and talking about some of the many things that space exploration has actually brought to the everyday person like you and me. But now we're about to go in and watch a very special video. I'm not sure if I can show you guys this, but if I can't, just know you need to watch it. So you're gonna have to come here to Colorado Springs. And it is right inside these doors. All I can say is that was so cool. Now, I can show you a few little pieces of it, but I couldn't let you see the whole thing. It's very, very extensive, and you learn so many neat things. In fact, they do several different programs inside this building on this sphere, and if I had time, I would sit through all of them. That was really, really neat. Now, I think that this haul is potentially the best way possible to ever wrap up this Discovery Center. Right here, it talks about the 3D printing, and that's something that we all can do now because of technology, which is super cool. But did you know that there's actually open source 3D printing where you can design things and share them with everyone, and then you can find things that other people have shared? This talks a little bit more about that, and you can actually see some of the 3D printers actually printing some of these items. As you can see here, it says here, use free software to design your object. Never pay for upgrades. All you have to do is go to lulzbot.com. So if you have a 3D printer, go to that and then check it out. And then look at all of these cool things that they're making here. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does this apply to space? Well, I think it's actually kind of neat because they can print most anything that they need from the space station at this point in life. which I think is super cool. In fact, one of the things that I saw over last year, just kind of going to different places like this, is there was a specific tool that was needed that the astronauts were able to print on the space station in order to use on the space station that did not exist before that moment. And I think that that is so cool that technology has allowed us to not only make these super cool little trinkety things that are fun, but also to have purpose and function and to be able to share that technology with the world. Now, as you can see, this place is pretty amazing, but there are so many cool activities that they also do here at the center. So if you're visiting, check out to see if they have any special programs. I've noticed that they have a couple of different conference centers, a couple of different labs, some really neat things, and maybe something you would be interested in exploring as well as you go up, up, up into space.